Hey, what's up?
Hi, you guys.
Hey, what is up? What's going on? Thanks for coming along this gorgeous Wednesday afternoon. Just fabulous out there. These are the days, Kath. I'm looking, everyone's sort of like plays weatherman in these weird days we're living in because it's going to change on a dime. And it looks like today, tomorrow, and Friday, temperatures like 80 degrees.
Oh, my gosh. I love it
And
so
then
much.
on Saturday, things will start to plummet.
Oh, no. Listen, I was out on Monday.
Yeah.
And I heard a woman say, I am so sick of 80.
What? Really?
And I looked at her like she was an alien
my
life
gosh.
form.
No.
I thought, I could 80 is my ideal.
Sounds good to me. I mean, I think isn't that why people move to San Diego? Right? I think it's always like 75 and sunny
and low humidity.
and they get tired of it. I guess you would.
I will never
Yeah.
get tired of 80. I just want you to know that.
And 80's great, but the continued sunniness.
I know it's too much. And today
No,
was
it's
kind of like a dull day.
Yeah.
And then a half hour ago, the sun
Boom,
came out
burst
here
out.
in Parkway Center, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, so it's good. It's really, really good. I just want to encourage you. I said to my wife, let's go out to dinner on Friday night, and we'll just sit somewhere that's outside.
Oh,
and like sort of
yes.
bid adieu to.
Isn't that?
It feels like summer,
I have eaten outside pretty much like every day.
even at home.
I just have to.
Yeah.
Because I'm just soaking it up.
Although the mosquitoes are out late at night, you got to be careful about that.
We went out for dinner the other night, ate outside on a patio.
Yeah.
But it wasn't good.
Why?
We had a bad dinner.
What? You had a bad
We
dinner?
did,
Like
but
the
I'm not
food
gonna
was
talk
bad?
about it. Yep. Not going to slam it on the air.
All right. Okay. No, please don't. Yeah.
But it's just one of those things. You get excited to
Hey.
have a dinner out on a patio. It wasn't good.
For all you know, they might have like one guy back in the kitchen, right?
See, now you make me feel
I'm
bad
just
for saying
telling
that it
you
wasn't
that's what
good.
it
Like, I'm
is.
allowed to have an opinion,
Yeah,
right?
I'm not slamming you, but for all you know, they might be struggling. And
I was sick yesterday. I come back, and this is how I'm received. That's what it is.
hey, what's up is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. As we always do, we get underway. Kath presents us with the top news stories of the day.
I do.
And why should today be any different? Kath, would you please give us the top 4 at 4?
Coming at you. For Wednesday, October 13th, 2021. Number 1. Hollywood's Captain Kirk, 90-year-old William Shatner, blasted into space this morning.
I love it.
In a weird convergence of science fiction and science reality.
So great.
Reaching the final frontier aboard a ship built by Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin company. According to the AP, the Star Trek hero and 3 fellow passengers soared an estimated 66 miles over the West Texas desert in the fully automated capsule. Then they safely parachuted back to Earth in a flight of just over 10 minutes, making Shatner the oldest person in space, eclipsing the previous record by 8 years. He looks great, doesn't he?
He looks terrific.
He
He's
really
90.
does. Yeah, he looks great.
Yeah.
This is a pinch me moment for all of us to see Captain James Tiberius Kirk go to space. So said the Blue Origin launch commentator Jackie Cortez before liftoff. She said she, like so many others, were drawn into the space business because of shows like Star Trek.
Of course.
Shatner said ahead of the countdown that he planned to spend his approximately 3 minutes of weightlessness gazing down at Earth, his nose pressed against the capsule's windows. Quote, "The only thing I don't want to see is a little gremlin looking back at me," he joked, referring to the plot of his 1963 Twilight Zone episode.
Also a classic.
I don't know that one. I don't know that show.
Oh, it's a
I've never
great
seen
show.
it.
Oh,
Not
it's
a single
streaming.
time.
Please do
I feel
yourself a
badly
favor.
about not knowing it.
Yeah.
Bezos is a huge Star Trek fan. The Amazon founder had a cameo as an alien in one of the later Star Trek movies. And did you know that William Shatner rode free as his guest?
Oh, I did not.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, Shatner starred in Star Trek from 1966 to 1969.
Very short. little
Very
bit
short.
thing, but major impact on his life. Career.
Number 2. Louisiana's Audubon Zoo is joining a list of other zoos and aquariums across the U.S. vaccinating resident animals against COVID-19.
All right. Fine. Sure.
According to CBS News, the vaccine was developed by the company Zoetis and is specially made for animals. The company has donated more than 11,000 doses to zoos, conservatories, etc. across 27 states. It's still considered experimental. That's still its classification by the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
But they're going to give it to ostriches.
I don't know.
I don't know.
At the New Orleans-based zoo, the vaccine is first being given to gorillas and orangutans. The organization also planning to vaccinate cats and mustelids, including otters, at both the zoo and at the Audubon Aquarium of the Americas. Now listen to this. They will not be put under anesthesia to be vaccinated. They have been trained to sit, stand, or present their bodies to staff.
Present? Really? Oh,
Here's my arm.
really? And when you say cats, you mean like a,
Lion.
tiger.
Exactly.
Not like your
Not like
household
Gus and
feline.
Shar.
Oh,
In June, California's Oakland Zoo became the first zoo to give the vaccine to animals, including tigers, black bears, grizzly bears, mountain lions, and ferrets. In January, 3 gorillas at San Diego's zoo contracted COVID. 2 lions right here in Pittsburgh tested positive in April, and a tiger and snow leopard in New York and Kentucky have also contracted. Number 3. You seem to be wanting me to get off that story quickly. Pens kicked off the 21-22 season in the right way last night in Tampa, winning a 6-2 victory over the Stanley Cup defenders. With Crosby sidelined as a result of off-season surgery to his left wrist and Malkin and Gensel both out too, the Pens still looked really good. Tristan Jarry made 26 saves on 28 shots, and wait till you hear who scored. You ready? Simone, Rodriguez, Heinen, Bluger, Rust, and Boyle. Not the names you are used to hearing. I like it.
there were several
Don't you
empty net
like it?
goals, right?
I like it. I fell asleep. No, I did not fall asleep. I was asleep when the game started and slept through the whole thing.
But there were several empty, just to say.
There was 3.
Great. Number 4. And today, in sports history, and particularly in Pittsburgh sports history, Bill Mazeroski opened the bottom of the 9th with a home run off Ralph Terry of the hated Yankees to give the Pirates the World Series.
Let's go Bucks.
October 13th, 1960, the shot, 3:36 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
That's your top 4 at 4.
Very nice. It's sad that, we're commemorating that because it's more than 60 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's really all we have with the Pirates.
That's not all we have.
Memories. We have memories.
Well, we have-
memories.
well, we've had a lot since
Like the-
1960.
But you know what I'm saying? We're living on, sort of thin fumes of 61 years
that's
ago.
no news to any of us, for crying out
just
loud.
saying.
It's a disaster here in
Just
Pittsburgh.
saying. All righty, that's
Anyway,
an awful lot.
We have a terrific show coming up today. I want to
do.
let you know that the Ride Home is streaming live on YouTube at the word Pittsburgh. So if you'd like to watch the show, we would love to welcome you
Yeah.
to watch it.
Say hey.
To say hi, you can put your name in the comment.
And might I say, our Pastor Appreciation Luncheon, that window is closing for you to sign up.
That's coming up next Tuesday.
It is. We'll be there. So you, if you're a senior pastor or an associate pastor, you and your spouses can attend for absolutely free. We'll be there as well. WordFM.com is the place to go to sign up. All right?
In our 5 o'clock hour, David French coming up, senior editor at The Dispatch. Coming up next, No Way to Treat a Child, how the foster care system, family courts, and racial activists are wrecking young lives. We'll talk about that next. Naomi Riley.
I can't tell you how many good and faithful people I know who have spent decades being foster parents. And in that process, they've had 1, 5, 10, or more children come and stay with them, be part of their family for sometimes months, sometimes years even. So it's weird to think about the foster system being under attack. But the case is, it really is true in this weird age that we're living in. Again, I'll use the word 3 times. Everything is weird. Well, Naomi Schaefer Riley is with us, and she's written a really interesting piece to talk about the foster system. No way to treat a child, how the foster care system, family courts, and racial activists are wrecking young lives. Naomi is with us now. Hey, Naomi, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Sure. So, Naomi, let's start at the beginning. If we're thinking about the foster care system, and maybe this is an obvious question or a rhetorical question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who should be the focus of the system? Who should we be trying to care for?
So you would think that that was an obvious question, but in fact, it's not to a lot of people. Obviously, we should be looking out, most importantly, for the best interests of the child. Unfortunately, our foster care system and the child welfare system as a whole seems these days to be more oriented around the needs and desires and sensibilities of adults. It's quite incredible.
How does that even happen? What does that mean? Can you dig
what
down
does that
into
look
that?
like?
Sure. So, I mean, one thing that happens is, you mentioned that people who fostered children for years.
Yes.
The foster care system is supposed to be temporary. It's supposed to be a temporary place that children can go to be safe for a brief amount of time. And we even have a federal law in the books that says if a child has been in care for 15 of the last 22 months, then we're supposed to be moving to sever parental rights because that's way too long to be in a temporary system. Unfortunately, the average amount of time that kids spend in foster care is 20 months. In some states like New York, it's 30 months. And there are kids who stay in the foster care system for years after years after years. And that is all so that we can accommodate the adults in their lives. We feel bad for the biological parents who often have mental illness problems, substance abuse problems. And so we keep sending the kids back time and time again and say, here's another chance. But how long should these kids have to wait for their parents to clean up their act?
Right. So, Naomi, any idea numbers of kids who are currently in foster care systems across the country?
Sure. There are about 440,000 kids in the foster care system right now, and about 600,000 children over the course of the year will be removed from their home and spend some time in foster care.
Wow. And of those 400 or to 600,000, how many of those kids will eventually find a permanent family?
So a lot of those kids will end up going back, like I said, to their biological family. But a quarter of those kids are actually, their parental rights have already been severed, and they are eligible for adoption. A lot of those kids who remain in the foster care system for long periods of time are older kids, kids in large sibling groups, kids with mental or behavioral health problems. And it's really hard to find them adoptive homes, unfortunately. But a lot of faith-based institutions and churches are really stepping up to do that work now.
Okay, so let's talk about faith-based institutions and what the communication or I guess my question is is there a partnership between faith-based institutions or faith-based people and the foster care system?
There absolutely is. In fact, I would say that churches and other faith-based institutions have launched a kind of revolution in foster care and adoption in the last 10 years or so. They've really remade the system in a lot of ways. They recognize that the way we used to recruit foster families, putting up a picture of a child on the nightly news, was not a very effective way to get people to volunteer. And so instead, in many large churches now, you have pastors who will say, these are the 6 kids in our zip code who need a home tonight. And that is a much more immediate, urgent message that people are hearing. They've also really changed the way we train foster families. Instead of just offering them advice about, how many fire extinguishers they need in their house, they're really getting into things like trauma-informed care to give families the tools that they need in order to take care of these kids who have experienced a lot of pain in their lives.
Talk to us about the financial aspect of the foster care system. Now, unfortunately, of course, when money's involved, people can use it for nefarious ends. There have been stories where people go, the system's rigged in some way. I'm going to take foster care kids into my home, 1 or 2 or more, and I'm going to get a monthly check from the system, and then, I'm going to be okay for a while. It's my means of keeping myself alive and not necessarily caring for the kids.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate the way people have come to abuse the system. But in some ways, I think that one fix for this is really kind of trying to get more middle-class Americans to volunteer. I mean, it's not to say that poor people can't love vulnerable children too, but if you're thinking about what would be a good home for a traumatized child, if a family is worried about where their next rent check is going to come from, that's a pretty unstable environment for a kid who's already experienced a lot.
Right.
So I think we really need to have a push to get middle-class, stable families into the system so we are not left with this kind of people who are just doing it out of desperation because they want the money.
Naomi Schaefer Riley's with us, senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. She has written all over the place. She's been a former columnist for the New York Post, worked at the Wall Street Journal as an editor and writer, the author of 6 previous books, but the one we're talking about today is No Way to Treat a Child: How the Foster Care System, Family Courts, and Racial Activists Are Wrecking Young Lives. So what about this recruitment you're talking about? Middle-class people looking at the foster care system and saying, yeah, this is a place that I can serve. This is a place I can fit in. Now, that's not a common thing that we hear in American culture. How do you think that could be worked out? Do you have any ideas for how that could be implemented?
Sure. Well, there are a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, a lot of people actually do think about fostering, but you should know that half of foster families actually quit within the first year. And the reason that they quit, I think, is if you look at surveys, we ask people these questions. One of the reasons that they quit is the way the system treats them. As difficult as the children are and as difficult as fostering can be, it is the way they are treated by family courts and child welfare agencies. They're treated like glorified teenage babysitters. Caseworkers will drop off kids at their house without giving any kind of medical history. They will drop off kids without mentioning that they have a history of sexual abuse. It's very difficult to be treated this way. And
so is that just an organization? I'm sorry to interrupt you. Is that just an organizational problem, Naomi? Is that just someone can't get the paper that talks about the kid's background into the hands of the foster parents?
Or is it lack of training?
I think it's both a lack of training, a lack of organization, but also a sense that foster parents are really not someone that we care that much about. We can treat badly because, they're just sort of a temporary stopping place. And a lot of agencies do not train their caseworkers to treat foster families well. And that example is also set in court. These are the families who've seen these kids day in and day out.
Right.
And when it comes to going to court hearings about their custody, the foster parents will show up. And often a judge will say, I'm not interested in what you have to say. Sit down. And to be treated like that after caring for a child day in and day out, I just think is so disheartening for these families.
I see. Now, talk to us, please, about racial activism, because this is a new wrinkle in the foster care system where families are, bringing foster children in of color, and all of a sudden they're being targeted as somehow discriminatory.
Yeah, this is absolutely shameful. But you can't really talk about the child welfare system these days without somebody accusing the whole system and even families who adopt interracially of being racist. So the claim is that the system is structurally racist because we remove a disproportionate number of black children from their homes. What they don't tell you is that a disproportionate number of black children are actually being abused and neglected in this country. In fact, black children are 3 times as likely to die from maltreatment as their white peers. And so we are offering this protection service. It is called child protection for a reason. We need to give these kids a safe haven. And even if it means that our, spreadsheet columns don't come out even, we still need to be providing that service. And it is horrifying to me the way that we have, really talked about these families who are taking in these kids as if they are doing something wrong. But even adoption agencies now have gotten into the business of accusing these parents of white privilege and telling them that they're really doing something terrible by tearing them away from their culture. We know what every child needs, which is a safe, loving, stable home. And it doesn't matter what their skin color is. And studies show that it doesn't matter what their skin color is. But the racial nonsense that has kind of taken over our country has now infected the child welfare system. And again, it's turned into the needs and desires of adults, not the best interests of children.
Interesting. Okay, so then you could use the word wokeism, I guess, in some ways to the foster care system. But then what are those seeds? Those seeds that begin somewhere within the social system, that's being perpetrated and amplified, and somehow that's affecting foster kids themselves, as opposed to, no one loving these children or caring for these children. Someone's willing and able to do this, you're saying, but the opportunities are being taken away.
Yeah, there's actually a law in the books called the Multi-Ethnic Placement Act, which says you cannot discriminate when you're placing a foster child in foster care or for adoption. That was passed in the 1990s. Democrats and Republicans came together and said the most important thing is for kids to find a safe, stable, loving home. And now we have people who are literally trying to overturn that law. They think we should be considering race at all these stages, and that the most important thing is that a child's skin color should match the skin color of their caretakers. I mean, it's really just absurd, and I don't think it's where most Americans are right now. I think most Americans recognize how important it is for these kids to find a home and not be languishing in foster care indefinitely. But that's what we're going back to.
Yeah. What about minorities represented in the administration of foster care? Are people of color weighing in on this? Are they? What's their perspective on this issue?
So I varies a little bit. I mean, there is this sort of stereotype of the child welfare worker as like the nosy white woman who goes and, bangs on the door of, some poor black family. But in fact, if you look at sort of who is in the world of child welfare, like, for instance, in New York City, 85% of the child welfare workers are either black or Hispanic. So it's not that people in this community don't recognize the need for foster care and recognize the need for child protection. I think what you're getting is a lot of people sort of, talking from academia, from 30,000 feet, saying, "Oh, this is all just, this is all unnecessary." There's even a move now. They call themselves the abolitionists because they want to abolish foster care and child protection altogether. They want to abolish mandated reporters like teachers and doctors and law enforcement officials who are required by their job to report child abuse and neglect when they see it. There are folks who want to eliminate that whole role, people who want to eliminate drug testing of newborns because, if we don't see the abuse or neglect, I guess it doesn't exist.
Wow. Okay, so then, a lot of this is really shocking to me, what you're saying, Naomi. So this book that you're putting out, to me, in some ways, at least from my perspective, is a first volley. Is there some sort of panacea, some sort of solution to this, or is this a runaway train?
Well, every state has a different child welfare agency, and so a lot of this is being done kind of, inside of the agencies culturally and the way that they run their agency. I think for me, the solutions are really about getting more people involved in the system, getting more people to actually become, for instance, court-appointed special advocates, CASAs, people who volunteer to go into court and represent the interests of the child to a family court judge, people who volunteer to do foster care, people who volunteer to support people doing foster care, churches that become friendly to this. I mean, I think the more responsible eyes we have on this system, the less these advocates will be able to get away with as far as kind of removing the safety net that we've put in place.
Right. And at the same time, I don't want to dump on anybody who's involved in the foster care system. This is extremely difficult work under, I'm sure, not the very best of conditions. So God bless those men and women who are on the front lines who are trying to help these kids. But clearly the system is broken from what you're telling us.
Absolutely. I think a lot of these people mean very well. They want to do this work, but, in some agencies, there's a 40% turnover rate. It's really hard work, and they're not respected very much either. I mean, we don't pay them very well. We don't train them very well. And frankly, we're not recruiting the best candidates for this. They go into, if they go into training, a lot of times their training is about cultural sensitivity, but we're sending them into sometimes very dangerous situations. I think in many cases, we should be training them much more like law enforcement. You have to go knock on a door. You don't know who's on the other side. You're going to make some pretty, difficult accusations of the people on the other side of that door. How are you protected? And are you trained to look around a room and figure out what is going on in that family? It requires a lot.
No, so Naomi, we're living in an age of defund the police, and the solution to that is to send social workers. You're saying that we're talking about the social workers. They need the police. Absolutely. I think a partnership between police and social workers is very important. And you have to understand that when you say send in the social workers, these people are often undertrained and under-resourced themselves.
We haven't asked the social workers whether they want to go in.
Right.
That's the problem. All right.
It's difficult.
Our time is up. Naomi, appreciate you being on the show today.
Good
It's
stuff.
certainly an important book that you've written. Thanks for sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
That's Naomi Schaefer Riley. You've probably seen her work either at the New York Post or Wall Street Journal. She's written a whole bunch of books, but her latest is No Way to Treat a Child, How the Foster Care System, Family Courts, and Racial Activists Are Wrecking Young Lives.
We come back. We're going to talk about Mike Tomlin and a high character leader in the Steelers.
In watching the Monday night NFL game, I was, paying attention to what was going on until, I was still paying attention to what was going on after. But, of course, the big news that broke in the middle of the game was that John Gruden had been fired as the head coach of the Los Angeles Raiders. And he's known to be volatile. That's the nicest way I can put it.
You think?
And so the first thing, I had read earlier in the day on Monday is that he was, an email had been discovered where he said something that was racially insensitive to somebody, and he apologized. And I read about it, and I thought, okay, that's a little shaky. I don't know. We'll kind of see where this goes. And then it was 12 hours later that he was out.
Okay, so what's weird to me about this whole story is some unnamed people, right, are doing sort of an accounting, an inventory of all the NFL emails.
No, I think they were in particular investigating the Washington Football Club.
Okay, but how many emails to go through those emails? How many is that? Hundreds of thousands,
there's
millions?
the number I heard today was that there was somewhere around 600,000 emails.
Okay. So then they go through these emails and then they uncover Gruden, right?
Right.
And then in their due diligence, they got to go, hey, we came up with something here.
Well, I think the way it happened, and again, sports is not the beat that we cover,
No.
but I think what happened is that they discovered the initial email that I referenced. That I read about in, I think it was the Wall Street Journal on Monday. And they went to NFL leadership and they said, hey, we found this. And NFL leadership said, okay, go see what else is there.
Right. No, but to me, this smacks of hypocrisy because the NFL has players on teams that have done criminal activity.
Yes,
Far
that's
worse.
true.
Right? And they go, NFL shrugs their shoulders and goes, yeah.
Well, okay, but
I'm not trying to defend John Gruden.
And
here.
I'm not trying to defend the NFL either, but I'm saying that in a lot of those cases, they're waiting for them to be adjudicated before they decide what happens.
Right.
So they don't want to fire somebody if they fire somebody and then they find out 3 months later that it goes to a court and a court says that they were not guilty, then the NFL is going to say we have to hire him back. So they're in a process of we're going to hang back and see what courts say.
Okay, so but there in black and white, there's John Gruden.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
And his emails, right?
I mean, listen. He used a racist trope to describe the NFL Players Association Executive Director D. Maurice Smith. That's the first email that I saw, the first report that I saw.
Right.
He criticized the league's hiring of women as referees, its drafting of gay players, whom he referred to in a derogatory way. He routinely referred to Roger Goodell in an absolutely terrible sense.
Yeah. I get it. 100%.
I'm trying to find ways to talk about this without telling you what he actually said. The bottom line is John Gruden was shown via his emails to be
not a man of good character.
A repulsive sort of person.
Right.
That's all there's just no excuse for it. And if it was, Tony Dungy said this yesterday, I believe, he said if it was one email and he apologized for it, okay. But it's just a pattern of behavior. This is what he really thinks. And if you watch how he responds on a sideline during a game, this is not a shock. No. I mean, he's a volatile person, as I said at the start of the segment. To me, he's incredibly unlikable. But this just puts it over the top. And there's no way he possibly could have held on to a job after this.
It's not a stretch to say he's kind of like the Bobby Knight of football. Right? There's
He's way worse than that to me. And I'm not defending Bobby Knight.
There's a lot of volatility.
There's a lot there.
Yeah. All that to say, there's a piece in today's PG that Ron Cook wrote, and I love the quote from Jerome Bettis.
Yeah. So Jerome Bettis did an interview with the Fan on Monday during his celebrity golf tournament out of Treesdale, and he was asked about Mike Tomlin, and he said this: Tomlin doesn't dip low, he doesn't go high. He is right down the line. He just stays the same. He is the calming influence regardless. If you're playing well, he's going to bring you back to earth. If you're not playing well, he's going to tell you where you need to get to and how to do it. This is what we need to do. This is how we're going to do it. These are the steps we need to take. As a player, Bettis said, that's what I love to see.
Right. Now, though, people say, oh, wait a second. What about AB and that whole thing? And, where was Tomlin in the midst of all that? Anybody who's a head coach, right, is ripe for criticism.
Yeah,
no doubt
I'm
about
not
it.
saying Tomlin has never done anything wrong.
No.
As
you're dealing with a lot of different characters.
But, a lot
of money.
Sports is not our beat. This is not what we do, but we're sports fans here in Pittsburgh, and I am a huge Tomlin fan.
I love him.
I am a huge Tomlin fan. And the Antonio Brown thing, it was just such a disaster.
Circus.
But, you also add coaching, dealing with, the current time, racial issues, economic issues, and you add to that social media. I wouldn't want to go anywhere close to this.
You need 20 guys to run that team.
Let me say one other thing. There are a lot of people I see online who are defending John Gruden, who are basically saying, look, this is another instance where somebody goes back and digs up a tweet that somebody made, tweeted 7 years ago, 11 years. If you haven't looked into the story, first of all, let me encourage you to do it. Second of all, I can tell you, this is way beyond a couple errant tweets.
Right.
This is a revelation of a guy's character. It is atrocious language that should never be used, no matter who you're talking to. And the fact that he used it repeatedly in email and that it's there for everyone to see, there's no reason why that guy should keep a job.
I agree. It makes me thankful that Mike Tomlin is our head coach. It really does.
Tomlin.
Okay, we'll take a quick break, come back. Have you hoarded your kids' baby teeth, hair?
That's disgusting.
Anything like that?
No.
We'll talk about that next. It's the Ride Home with John and Kathy, Pittsburgh's Christian Talk, Word FM. We have blankies from our kids when they were little kids that they dragged around when they were toddlers that are very precious to us. We also have some things that I know you have a problem with, Kath. I have a baggie, a Ziploc baggie with, I don't know, 15 maybe baby teeth, which I love.
That's like a horror movie.
No, it's cool. I love it.
Why is that cool? Your kids are 20 and 22 years old.
You know where they are? They're in my sock drawer.
Okay, what is that? Why are you keeping those?
I just think they're sweet.
They're sweet.
Yeah, there's something that's so incredibly tiny about them.
Yeah.
And I remember, helping them through that process of, hey, Daddy, my tooth is wiggly, and being part of that, and then eventually extracting that thing, and then playing the role of said tooth fairy, which is an excellent role. And so why not keep it?
Which at that point, you just throw the tooth away.
Never.
Okay. All right.
Never.
An article in today's New York Times, The Wild Ways Parents Preserve Their Kids' Memories, written by Jessica Delfino. So Jessica is on your side.
Good.
And not just for herself, because she has interviewed a bunch of people for this article, and people are keeping absolutely outrageous things. I mean, absolutely outrageous things. Okay, so I think the first tooth that fell out of both of my daughters.
Okay.
I had like a little sterling silver special little box. Or
Yeah.
something. I believe I still have that.
You still
I'm
have
not
it?
sure.
No.
I might.
We have both of our kids, when you cut the umbilical cord and then, I don't know, weeks or a month later, that little crusty ring around their belly
Yeah.
button falls off.
Yeah.
I have both those. I think it's cool. I mean, I don't go out and show it around.
Why would you keep that?
I just think it's an artifact of my kids' lives, and it's interesting to me. And I don't know where it is. I know, it's in a little sort of like you have in a little container somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's just something that I would like to have.
Okay, that's okay. So in the article, it talks about other people who have kept the child's whatever umbilical cord. I can't even speak correctly because I'm so overwhelmed by this.
I can't believe that you're disgusted by this. How can you be so upset about this?
Other mothers confess to holding on to hair,
Yeah.
artwork, clothing,
Of course.
teeth. I do have my positive pregnancy test. I
had
do
that
have
too.
that.
Both.
I do have
Yep.
that.
Yeah, we
Okay.
have that.
I mean, what's the breast milk part
Okay,
of the
here's the deal.
story?
So-
Because this is where I about lost my mind.
So one of the authors says, I'll admit to being sucked into a trend that I saw on Etsy in which enterprising jewelers mix clients' breast milk with resin and turn it into pendants for earrings, rings, bracelets, and other type of jewelry. When I saw an ad for one
That
such
is so
business,
wrong.
I plunked down $60, shipped a plastic bag of my breast milk. It turned into a pair of earrings. I'd call myself bold, but I don't know if I ever have the gall to wear them in public.
that cannot be like acceptable
No.
human behavior.
And then she imagines
It can't.
someone. She imagines the conversation. I love your earrings. My coworker might say one day. Where did you get them? Oh, thank you. I'd reply. They're made of my breast milk. I don't know. I just think. Look,
Okay, what? You just think what?
as
I wanna hear
beauty
about it.
as beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
So are keepsakes in the hands of the beholder.
Okay, but so you're keeping them for you. You're not keeping them for your sons.
No, I'm not going to. Hey, you guys, you want your little belly button thing that fell off when you were like, 3 months?
Because it is.
And they're going to go, Dad, stop being a freak.
Right.
Okay, let's go out and do something else. Let's go to, no, it's for me. I'm not going to pass it along to them. Whenever I'm gone, they might go through something and go, what the heck
They
is that?
might.
What is this? I don't have
they're
a note in
going
there.
to.
They might go, what's this crusty old thing here? Let's throw that away. Or the bag of babies. No, wait. Saying that out loud does seem kind of weird. The bag of baby teeth that I possess.
That sounds like something from a Stephen King book.
I mean, I just think it's cute. It's sweet. I don't pull them out, regularly. But, there's something that's like kindergarten artwork or, the baby blanket.
So I have a big box in my closet of stuff like memorabilia.
Yeah, childhood memories.
I have. So every once in a while, I'll bring it out when my kids are home and we'll look through it.
Aw,
Right? Oh, isn't that sweet? Look how cute that is.
Aw.
But each time I try to throw things away because we don't need to keep all of it. You throw things in there at the moment when you think that they're going to be meaningful. And then you go back and you say, actually, it wasn't meaningful. But you think your teeth, the baby teeth might go in that box and maybe one day.
Apparently they're still meaningful to me because I've yet to let go
Okay,
of them.
I've heard from a friend of ours via text message. I'm not going to use her name because I don't have her permission.
Okay.
But she said, yes, I have all my kids' primary teeth because science will someday be able to use the cell's DNA from them should my children need it. I'm not even kidding.
All right.
That's what she said.
Okay.
Is that a thing?
I guess so. Okay, so
Well, I'll tell you that dried up umbilical cord thing is going to be the difference between life and death.
maybe. Okay, now in this piece, this is interesting. Quote, this kind of collecting makes me think of hoarding, said Dr. Sandip Bush, a psychiatrist who has worked with hoarders before. Hoarders don't like throwing things away because they're throwing away part of themselves. They are holding on to their past. Now look, you know me.
Yeah.
I am not a hoarder.
No, you're not a hoarder. You're
Right? I'm the opposite of a
incredibly
hoarder.
clean, pristine person.
So that just goes to show you the emotional impact. Listen, when my kid moved from the crib to the big boy bed that first night,
Yeah.
I openly wept. Like, oh no, he's growing up. I mean, so I again,
Yeah. Okay.
emotion is in the eye of the holder, and it's
Right.
just something that
So now I feel badly the way you say it that I'm picking on you for the teeth.
you don't pick on. I don't care.
Okay.
I got thick skin. I've been
It's-
hanging out with you for a while, lady.
Yeah,
I know who you are.
That's a good point. We were at an event not too long ago.
Yeah.
A publicity thing, and someone said to me, "You're so hard on him." Remember? You
Yeah.
were there. You're so why
People-
do you pick on him
People
so
say
much?
that. Yeah. I grew up with 5 sisters. You don't think I can handle chaos in my life?
You don't think you? I mean, handling me is nothing
Oh,
compared
that's a
with
walk in the
them.
park. Your little things like fall off me
Exactly.
like rubber bullets. Boink, nothing.
Big
nothing.
deal.
Yeah. No worries at all. Anyway, all that to say,
All right, I haven't talked you into throwing the teeth out.
nope.
Okay. And the umbilical cord thing, are you giving that a second thought?
No, nothing's giving me a second thought. Because here's the deal: one of these days, I'll be 90. I'll pray for that, and I will not probably be in my. I'll be somewhere in the ether, and somewhere going to go, hey, how about this bag of teeth? And I might have like a moment where I go, oh, or I might lean into it and go, aw. I'll do the Pittsburgh aw, and
your kids
and
who
the flood of memories will come back
and
to
your
me.
kid whose teeth you're talking about is going to be 70 years old.
Doesn't even matter.
Okay.
He's still my baby because
right.
your babies are always your
Oh,
baby.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. I mean, at least you're not holding it for them.
No, it's just
'Cause
for me.
I guess that's weirder. All right. Coming up next, the surprising, violent, world-changing history of pumpkin spice. It's pumpkin spice everything right now.
Right.
Kit Kats and Twinkies now come in pumpkin spice form.
What do you mean a cat? A cat?
A Kit Kat.
Oh, I mean, like a cat. Like, you adopt a cat and it comes
No,
in
a Kit
pumpkin
Kat.
spice cat.
But you could name your cat
I don't
Pumpkin
know.
Spice if you want to.
I mean, it's not that far out of the realm of possibility, right? Everything's pumpkin spice.
Somehow, pumpkin spice ramen exists. So does pumpkin spice seltzer made by Bud Light.
Come on.
Should you feel the need to bathe in it, there's pumpkin spice hand soap. Pumpkin spice scented masks stand ready to fill your pandemic with fall flavor. I read from Matthew Corvage's article in USA Today. Here's the thing, though. We know that our producer, Christy Stockdill, is a pumpkin spice devotee.
Yes.
That means she's gone beyond it's okay, gone beyond liking to full commitment. That when this season is upon us, she's there.
100%, right?
She's there.
Okay, but wait, just one quick thing. What I love about a pumpkin, right? There's a pumpkin.
Yeah.
And then when you were a kid, did your dad cut the pumpkin open?
Yes.
Okay, that cutting the pumpkin open, like to me, was like a major event
Like
of the year.
like the reveal.
Because when you open that thing up, you go, no one's ever seen that before. We're the first ones to touch those, like to be inside there. I love that so much. But then the pumpkin spice itself, where exactly is that derived? Like
Okay.
they melting a pumpkin?
I'm very glad you asked that
Okay,
question, and I was surprised to read the answer. Okay, so pumpkin pie, those spices like cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, all those weren't put together officially until McCormick called it that in 1934.
What?
So there was nothing called pumpkin pie spice before 1934.
But there was pumpkin pie.
There was. I don't know if there was pumpkin pie. I don't have the
yeah,
answer
there had
to
to be
that. I don't know
pumpkin
if there
pie
was
before.
it. I'm not.
There's
All
always
I'm
been
saying
pumpkin
is that
pie.
it was not called pumpkin pie spice. Like that pumpkin spice thing wasn't a thing until 1934.
Because
okay?
of the McCormick people.
Right, exactly. Starbucks didn't kick off their pumpkin spice latte that Christy is so into until 2003. Okay? But the history of the pumpkin spice is super old and it's far from basic. The spice blend, apparently, is an enduring remnant of a violent history, which is Europeans, white Europeans, loving Asian spices and doing whatever they had to do, including military conquest, to get them.
Wait, are you saying people died for pumpkin spice?
Listen to me. It is the craziest story, and I can't go into the whole thing, but listen to this. So
so you ruined
white rich Europeans loved those
It's over.
exotic spices. Now
Yeah.
listen to me. Loved those Asian exotic spices, and it helped them to feel like they were a little more elite, right? And so they would do whatever they could to find them, right? So aromatic cloves, ginger, nutmeg, these were all considered rare, luxuriant treasures. Okay, the original steak sauce of 14th century Europe was a cinnamon, ginger, clove sauce called cameline. Okay, which is very similar to what pumpkin spice is today. Those are the flavors that are in pumpkin spice, but they were costly to obtain. Now, we know that Columbus was not looking for America. Right. He landed here, but he was looking for a sea route to Asia's cinnamon and pepper trade. That's what he was looking for, right? Instead, apparently he came back with allspice, which is also in pumpkin spice.
Right.
The spice. Okay. But listen to this. The most notorious and tragic chapter, perhaps, was the battle to corner the market in nutmeg controlled by the Bandanese people of Indonesia. Okay. The residents of the Banda Islands repelled repeated attempts until finally the Dutch in 1620 embarked with a force of more than 1,900 to massacre the Bandanese. The Bandanese tried to negotiate terms, but they were killed or enslaved. And in some accounts, the heads of the leaders were put on pikes because of nutmeg.
Oh, my gosh.
I am serious, because of nutmeg. But here's the thing. When you get to like the 17th century, more people started to be familiar with those flavors, and so they didn't seem as special anymore. And so they reverted from being elite stuff that you would put in like a fine dinner to stuff that the average person could bake.
Right. Okay, so but now,
And so
but what
that's
you're saying,
how we
though,
have ended up with it where it is now.
But
in
cancel
pumpkin
culture
pie.
will come upon us right now because now we go, oh, I'm going to have a Starbucks spicy pumpkin thing. But people died for this, right? So because people
died for
right?
nutmeg. It's true. However, the pumpkin pie spice is for the average person now. It's the everyman's drink. Christy, we salute you.
We salute you, Christy. Have that pumpkin spice. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for coming along the 5 o'clock hour of the Wednesday edition. Okay, I just heard the quote of the day from management. Just ran into management in the hallway during the 5 o'clock break,
Yeah.
and I was approached and said, why is it that serial killers and people with 3 last names, those people with 3 last names, they appear in your show?
I mean, not serial killers appear on our show.
No.
No, people with 3 last names.
3 last names, right?
That's interesting.
I mean-
we had Naomi Schaefer Riley on a little bit ago.
Right.
That's who he was thinking of.
Yes, he was. Why is it that people with 3 last names are serial killers, and those people with 3 last names? I don't know. I have the answer for
Appear
that.
on our
It just
show.
kind of happens. that
Fortunately,
way.
those don't overlap.
No. Thank goodness.
Right?
You know, yeah.
So that's a plus.
Right.
Also, we have the Word FM stream going on right now.
Yes.
You can find us on YouTube at The Word Pittsburgh if you'd like to watch the show. Please leave your comments, ask your questions, whatever. I'll try to get over there and answer whatever needs to be answered.
All right. And the clock is ticking. If you have been considering about our 15th annual Pastor Appreciation Luncheon,
let the consideration end.
it has to, because
Move to decision making.
we're going to close the window on that. We've got to tell the people that at the Hilton at Green Tree, Doubletree Green Tree, are going to say, hey, how many people are showing up? So if you've been sitting on the fence, come and join us. Word FM next Tuesday afternoon. We'd love to see you there. If you're a senior pastor or an associate pastor, and your spouses are welcome. All the crew will be there from Word FM, and it's absolutely free. It's a great afternoon of encouragement. Jack Graham will be the keynote speaker, so we hope to see you there. But you need to go there very soon, like I would say now or today, at wordfm.com.
Because John and I need to know how many pancakes to make.
Right.
I'm kidding. There aren't going to be pancakes. There's not going to be any pancakes.
When's the last time you had a pancake?
Too long ago, months.
I
mean,
agree.
like maybe a year. Maybe I haven't had a pancake in a year. I had a waffle about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was supreme.
How about a crepe?
I'm not as into crepes as
What?
I just love.
Who doesn't love a crepe?
waffle? It's not that I don't. I mean, believe me, I'm not going to say no to a crepe.
Yeah.
But if I pick between a crepe and a waffle pancake, I'm always going to go waffle.
Right. Crepe Suzette or Suzanne Flechette?
Plachette.
Flechette.
Remember when she showed up at the end of the second Newhart thing?
I do, yes.
All right. So news came last week that Jesse Duplantis, who is a televangelist, apparently. I'm not familiar with Jesse. I've seen his name. I've never seen his show or whatever it is he does. But reading from the Christian Post, he made a wild claim apparently during a recent fundraiser. And this is what he claimed. Are you guys ready?
Tell me.
Paying attention, everybody?
I'll take notes if you need be.
Jesus hasn't returned yet because Christians are not giving enough money. Yep. Speaking at Kenneth Copeland's Victory-thon fundraiser, where Copeland was raising money for, you want to know what he's raising money for?
Tell me.
A private jet to ensure he does not have to take the COVID vaccine, which he claims is the mark of the beast. Duplantis, supporting his televangelist friend's fundraiser, stated, I honestly believe this. The reason why Jesus hasn't come is because people are not giving the way God told them to give. You see what I'm saying? I mean, when you understand that you can speed up the time, then...
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, that's everything heinous in approximately 4 sentences,
Yeah.
basically, in
That's
the universe.
what you come to the right
But wait,
home for.
there's the cherry, that if you want Jesus to come back sooner, you should give more money.
to him in particular, so he can get his jet.
He actually said that? Someone actually believes that?
I'm reading this from the Christian Post. He then went on, the article's by David Rogers, staff writer.
Yeah.
He then went on to boast that he was not a millionaire, but rather a multimillionaire. Talking about an executive at a TV station, Duplantis recounted a conversation he had where the executive said that Duplantis was a millionaire. And he said, no, that's not right. Multimillionaire. Copeland and other leaders were quick to laugh about the story. Duplantis continued, oh, he couldn't handle that. He had a fit. And I said, you mess with me, I'll buy this station and I'll fire you. He then stated, that was a little fleshly, but it felt good. To scattered laughter and applause.
Where is that? The Christian Post, you said?
Yeah. Duplantis has been heavily criticized for his comments. He recently donated $100,000 worth of generators after being heavily criticized after his ministry did not do anything or enough to help his community of St. Charles Parish, which was hit by Hurricane Ida.
Okay, I mean, that's that's heinous and heartbreaking in the same breath. And when you hear things like that, especially, well, even if you are a believer, but especially if you're not a believer, and you would read that, you would go, well,
These people
that's
are a
it.
joke. This
Right.
whole thing is a joke.
That's frauds.
Jesus was a joke.
Those are cheaters. That's just people trying to get rich on the backs of poor, unsuspecting people.
That's
which-
exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. I think it's important to talk about because these are people who claim the name of Jesus and they claim to be part of the church, and they are the opposite of that. As Jesus said, not everybody who says to me, Lord, Lord, is going to enter the kingdom of God. So all of us have to be careful. Every single one of us have to be careful
Amen.
that we are coming to God humbly in confession, recognizing that every single one of us is screwed up in like countless ways, and asking the Holy Spirit to continually be looking at what we're saying, what we're thinking, what we're reading, so that we can be conformed more to the likeness of Jesus. Because it's easy for any of us to fall into sin and fall into wrong thinking. And I'm not trying to pick on Jesse Duplantis and saying that he's, somehow less of a person than you and I are, because we're all the same. But when you read something like this, it has to be talked about, and you just have to say out loud, this is not the gospel of Jesus.
I agree with that 100%. Yes, without a doubt. And your heart breaks for those poor people who are, listening and following along with Jesse Duplantis and thinking I'm part of my ministry, so I need to be faithful to that and give more. You're just being duped and sucked into something that is absolutely heinous. So God bless those poor people.
Yeah.
And would they know the truth of the gospel of Christ and step away from that poor
right.
teaching?
And would they know that the gift of grace is exactly that? It's a gift. It's not something that you buy.
Take it to the bank.
It's not something, we can't hasten Jesus' return
Come on.
by paying Jesse Duplantis so that he can have a jet and not have to take the COVID vaccine. I mean it's just...
I don't understand. How can someone with, biblical knowledge who calls themselves a pastor twist something like that to their own advantage, for their own advantage? It just doesn't make any sense. Right. How does a person put their head on the pillow at night and think that was a good day's work?
Yeah.
Or I did, I proclaimed the gospel of Jesus.
Right.
How far perverted do you have to become? So
what did Jesus say to the Pharisees in, I think this is Matthew 21? He says, you are whitewashed tombs. You look good on the outside, but inside you are full of dead men's bones. That's what this is. You just have to say it. This is antithetical to the teaching of Jesus.
Amen to that. And of course, right, all of us fall short of the glory of God. But boy, that's deep and ugly. There's no doubt about that. All right, let's take a quick break. When we do come back,
Becca McNeil, our good friend.
Yeah, we're going to talk about young life at the border and looking at young people, right? Illegal immigrants, you would say, coming across the border and how they're being ministered to.
Doing stuff that matters. That's next.
There's a lot to be said, written about, and prayed for at the ongoing crisis at the southern border. But Becca McNeil is back with us, and when we do talk about the southern border, we love to have Becca with us because she is on the ground. Her eyes and her heart and her prayers are first and foremost for those who are trying to get into the United States. And say what you will about it, it's a very complex issue. There's no doubt about that. She wrote a piece, Becca did, at Christianity Today called When God Opened a Coliseum, Young Life Ministers Were Ready. And Becca, welcome to the show. Thanks for telling us this amazing story.
Thank you guys for having me. It's so good to be back with y'all.
Yeah, happy to have you back. Okay, Becca, you write that in April and May of 2021, the Office of Refugee Resettlement temporarily housed 1,500 boys aged 13 to 17 on the grounds of the sporting arena just 2 miles from the school where Eric Collins and Felix Chavez have been struggling to start a Young Life Club in the midst of a pandemic. Tell us the story.
Yes. Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot of variables coming together. In Felix Chavez's summary, as I was talking to him, that I really, really loved was God is the God of details, and you just see that all over the place. He and Eric had been trying to start a new Young Life Club on the east side of San Antonio, and with all of the restrictions and stuff, kids just weren't gathering. And that's kind of the Young Life model, is go where the kids are, and they weren't anywhere.
Right.
And so they're just struggling, and all of a sudden, one day, Felix kind of comes in and says, I found a bunch of kids in one place. Here's the catch. They're behind about 3 guards, and we got to get permission from the United States government to get in there. And so, and that's how it all began. But they were just thrilled to do what they were called to do, which is minister to teenagers.
I mean, I love it. This takes a lot of guts, an incredible amount of moxie to try to work through that red tape.
And everybody's angry about it, right? So at the Coliseum, you've got people who are protesting. You've got people from, I don't know, immigrants' rights groups and people who are pro-government and anti-government, Becca, all weighing in on this, right?
Oh, yeah. It had become this flashpoint. We went back and forth about this at Christianity Today as well. You know, are these kids in detention? Are they in a shelter? What are we calling this? And so there was back and forth over that. And then there was some kind of posturing by politicians about, we want to see what's going on in here. So there was a lot going on. And basically Felix said, I don't need to take a side on this. I just need to get in front of those kids.
Right. My opportunity
and
for
so
the
that's
gospel.
what he did.
Okay, so then, so Eric Collins and Felix Chavez, they discovered that Catholic Charities was somehow operating within the confines where these kids were, and they grabbed onto those coattails, yeah?
Yes, and Catholic Charities in San Antonio they are very cooperative. They like to bring people in, and so they have Felix was able to forge a great relationship with them, and basically said, and it was one of those things that anyone who's ever worked with asylum seekers, and especially unaccompanied minors, knows it's a day-by-day thing. They're not there, the Office of Refugee Resettlement, Catholic Charities, nobody is there to say, oh, how can we help you with your long-term planning? They are responding in the moment. Things are changing daily, and this particular situation was changing daily. And so for Felix, it was a matter of like, I don't know if we're going to get to go in today. I really hope so. I've got all my Bibles ready. And every day he would just have to kind of keep showing up, hoping that today was the day.
Right. Okay. So a lot of these kids inside there, I mean, especially kids from Central America, they either come from Catholic or evangelical families. So a lot of these kids would say, I know who Jesus is. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what he found, and this is something that we're finding over and over again, is that spiritual people need spiritual care. And in the camps where people were waiting during the Remain in Mexico program, in detention, these are people who have vibrant spiritual lives and are longing to be ministered to on those terms. And so Felix felt this drive to get in there and meet those particular needs, because it wasn't just about sharing the gospel with people who do not know Christ. It was about people who are longing to be pastored because they are accustomed to being pastored. And so he really felt a call to get in there and to minister to the people of God in as much as he wanted to get in there and share the good news of Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he ends up saying, agreeing to the terms that the Catholic Charities had set up. They were able to go into the Colosseum and talk about what happened. I mean, what do you do? What did they do when they got in there? I mean, you're trying so hard to get in, and then you finally get in, and you're like, well, now what?
Here we go.
Well, and what's amazing is he was like, we didn't know what we were, it's not like somebody sits you down and does an orientation.
Yeah, here's a plan.
Yeah, he walks in, and he said pretty quickly it became clear that he's a coach. He coached football for a while, and so he has this magnetism, and basically they kind of turned to him and they're like, do you want to talk to the kids? And so he said he was just ready with whatever the Spirit led him to say. And before long, it was clear that he also speaks Spanish, and they were able to form a pretty great bond. And so for the month or so, a few weeks or so that he was getting to go in there, pretty quickly, Eric said when Felix would come in, the kids would run to him and want to talk.
So, Becca, this was just a temporary facility, right? I mean, this thing right now is dispersed, but for a while, this had to be a hub of great activity, and especially you got two guys like Eric and Felix going in there and presenting the gospel and just being a lifeline for these kids to bring them the good news. I mean, I just can't imagine the excitement and the energy that was going on inside there.
Yes, and what even got more amazing is that they did manage to create 2 worship services.
Wow.
Essentially, they rallied some Young Life volunteers and brought them in to do music, and it wasn't the wacky, goofy, fun Young Life that we're all used to, that many people are familiar with. It was much more sober, but at the same time, very emotional and very full of life and joy, but definitely more of that joy in the midst of great uncertainty. And so they were able to just get volunteers in there, and it was one of those up to the last minute. I tried to go in with them, but they had a media block. I mean, it was flying by the seat of our pants in many ways, their pants, and planning as best they could. But, and then there's the great part of the story where a kid had his shoes stolen on the way out. Another child took his shoes with him. And so Felix said, we're going to get you new shoes. And they end up getting new shoes because the kids only have the government issued sandals. Getting new shoes for all these kids and bringing them in. It became this kind of humanizing component that the government can't always provide. They're doing protocols and whatnot, and this became this very human interaction for the kids.
Right. And that's why we loved your article, is that your article's doing the same thing, because immigration to most people in America is a political issue. And
not a human issue.
It's not a human issue. And so people can go on Twitter, or they can go on Facebook or whatever their social media platform is, or to their neighbor next door and complain about immigration policy and complain about how terrible the government is, how terrible this president is, or how terrible the last president is. But there are few, and I mean unbelievably few people who are actually on the border doing face-to-face work that actually matters, really reaching out to people who need it. And that's why this story just gripped us, and why we're so happy you were able to join us today, just to give us a picture, Becca, of the fact that there are real people who are doing, there are real people that are going beyond politics, who don't even care about it, who just want to minister, just want to meet, just want to share real faith, real joy with an actual kid.
Yeah, and I will say that the image that gripped me because I did get to see some of what was going on inside, the kid who had his little lanyard on. They have lanyards with their names, and he had his teddy bear that would hang on his lanyard. And you're just going, oh my gosh,
It's a baby.
this is still a kid that carries a teddy bear.
Yeah.
And that, to get close enough to be able to see that, I think that Jesus calls us to be proximate to people. And that's what these folks are doing on the border. And I do think that everything changes when it's done within touching distance.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
this is
so
not
true.
someone that's an evil person or something that's nefarious. This is a child of God, and they need the care and the love and the grace that you and I have as well.
Absolutely.
That's Becca
Absolutely.
McNeil. Thanks, Becca.
Thank you guys for sharing the story.
Our pleasure.
Becca's a journalist based in San Antonio, Texas. We're talking about the article she wrote for Christianity Today called When God Opened a Coliseum, Young Life Ministers Were Ready.
Take a quick break. When we do come back, it's our daily feature. Does this make sense?
It might. It might today.
That's next.
Makes sense.
Does what make sense?
YouTube ads. Like the ads that pop up
Right.
when you're just about to watch your video, or one step worse. You're watching a live recorded, but a live music video of your favorite band. And in the middle of like a great song, an ad pops in.
Well, I would say the ads are a necessary, not evil, but a necessary thing to prop up YouTube. Now, imagine 30 years ago, someone saying to you, you could go somewhere and type in whatever you want, a music video or what, and there would be. Would you gladly give up 30 seconds
Of your time to do that.
And you would say, absolutely.
Yeah, well, now I feel ungrateful.
Well, that was short-lived.
But all I'm saying is this, John.
It makes sense, Kath.
No.
It
What I'm
makes perfect
saying is, do you watch them?
The commercials?
If they pop up in the middle of a music video, you're watching a live concert, are you watching the video? Are you watching the ad?
Yeah. I feel contractually bound to do so. I do. I do. However, I do appreciate this. Like you watch, we have Hulu.
Yeah.
Hulu, they have like the little counter, the commercials counting down, like the YouTube thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I just mute the sound because it's like 90 seconds or something. I
Right.
just mute the sound, and then I'd go about whatever I'm doing, and then come back. So I appreciate that
fine.
little aid.
That's fine. That
to
aid is
skip
helpful.
the commercial.
It doesn't make sense. You know why?
Why?
Because you're muting it.
It makes sense.
No, it doesn't make
You're
sense. 'Cause
paying
not-
for your interaction to
Yeah,
be.
exactly. Except it's not helping the company because they're trying to advertise to you and you're muting it.
Somebody else is listening.
I don't think they are. That's why I'm saying it doesn't make sense.
All right, does this make sense? Cheese Whiz.
Oh,
Listen. Cheese Whiz.
yeah. Liquid at room temp.
It makes sense to you? What?
No.
Stop.
Cheese
Stop.
is solid. Cheese is solid. So at room temperature, it's supposed to be solid. It's not supposed to be liquidy when you open up the jar. What do you think?
When I was in college and I had a few extra bucks, I considered this the height of fine dining. A box of Triscuits, a long stick of pepperoni, and a big old jar of Cheese Whiz. And I'd get a Triscuit with a blob of Cheese Whiz and a slice of pepperoni. I thought I was like living in Beverly Hills. I love Cheese Whiz. Now, as an adult,
Yeah, how much are you eating that?
not at all. It's been decades.
Right, so
But I see my kids eat it. So for a certain
demographic at a certain time in
college
your life.
kids, it makes a lot of sense.
YouTube ads? I don't think so.
I like Cheese Whiz. So at the church I attend, I think like a lot of churches, right? It's like a yo-yo kind of thing, right? We were closed for a chunk of the pandemic, and then we were open back up again, with you had to wear a mask. And gladly. I just want to go back to church. I was happy to see everybody, to be in worship with my community. And then, we went through a period where like, okay, you can get rid of your masks, which is fabulous. I mean, there it is. Great. We're back to, in air quotes, normal. But then a few months after that, maybe just not even a few months, maybe 2 months, they were like, you know what? Things are kind of funky again. We're going to mandate masks. So, the weird thing is, you kind of go, initially, whenever we first went back, a tiny percentage of your friends were there, and then we started to build. The word got out. Hey, man, we're back again. And people started to get hungry, and they started to come back. And then we were wearing masks, and then we weren't wearing masks, and then we were wearing masks again. And then when we hit that area where we're going to wear masks again, I mean, a good friend of mine, she's fabulous. And she was like, I'm out of here because this is crazy. This is like fear, everyone's afraid. So I'm not coming back, or I'll come back whenever you're not going to wear a mask again. Well, I get that. I mean, I do. I get it, but at the same time.
Nobody likes wearing a mask.
No.
Which we've said 10,000 times in the last year and a half. Nobody likes wearing a mask.
And so I get that. I mean, people are upset about it. So.
But does that mean that we either withdraw completely?
No.
Or does that mean that we start to look at the people who are making those decisions as somehow like the enemy?
Right, because these people, I've been with these, people, my friends for a long, long time, and I love these guys, I do.
And what about the people who lead your church?
I love them too. And you know what? They're just trying to follow along and try to be good stewards to make sure that everyone's good. That's all. It's not, and I don't believe it's like some political thing or no one. But like all things in this era that we live in, it's become contentious and it's made people angry and upset and finger pointing and, I'm not coming back and you guys are a bunch of sheep. How can you be a sheep just going along with what, the church is saying? And, you're following the CDC guidelines. You're a bunch of, why would you even do that? We're not coming back to church ever again.
And so it becomes some kind of ideological standoff.
Where all of a sudden you want to be in community and worship and be with people that you know and love together like you've been together for years. And now all of a sudden there's like a hard line that's drawn where I'm showing up at church and I'm less than because I'm a sheep and I'm choosing to wear a mask like we've been asked to do. And those other guys, my buddies, are like pointing the finger like, calling names or whatever, and we're never coming back. And I love those guys, and I know that they love me.
Right. So when you look at situations like this, and that's a real life example in John's, social circle, we all can think of instances where we were on one side of that conversation or the other side of that conversation.
In society and in the church.
Yeah, and in public.
Right.
And my question is this. Why are we always drawn in to thinking that people on the other side, people who disagree with us, are the enemy? That's my question.
The enemy. David French is with us. David's a senior editor at The Dispatch, which is a daily newsletter, I would say, that we love. It's in our mailbox every morning around 7 a.m. He's also an attorney practicing in constitutional law, a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom, and a New York Times bestselling author. Hey, David, you walked in the middle of this conversation about contentiousness.
I did. And my goodness, what an important conversation. This is, I keep going back to a conversation that I had with a collection of really prominent and thoughtful pastors more than a decade ago. I mean, about 15 years ago. I'll never forget it. We were in a conference room in New York talking about cultural developments in American Christianity. And one of them said this: I've noticed a profound change. He said, it used to be that, especially amongst younger Christians, we could disagree about important things and remain friends. I'm noticing increasingly that agreement is a prerequisite to friendship. And I thought, I've not forgotten that. And I have noticed that more and more and more and more, that agreement is a prerequisite for friendship. And what ends up happening, there are two things that happen when that's the case. One is, it's actually an expression of a lot of arrogance to sort of hold that view, because it says that we, as very limited human beings who have limited knowledge about a whole host of topics, are in a position to say that we're so correct that it is not worth a close relationship with people who are incorrect.
Right.
And then the other thing that it does is a practical matter is it just contradicts the example of Jesus. You know, it's interesting when you think about Jesus and his disciples, he spent his entire ministry with people who not only didn't understand his ministry fully,
right,
but he knew that in the ultimate moment, we're going to be, by and large, nowhere to be found. And one of them was actually going to betray him, and another one, Peter, was actually going to abandon him in his hour of ultimate need. And yet he not only hung in relationship with those people, he died for them. He died for them. And so there's a couple of ways in which, you know, it's both it's that arrogance that says, I know enough to know that you are not worth a relationship if you disagree with me. And also this sort of contradiction of the biblical example of Jesus and the cross that's just so damaging about the Christian, the atmosphere in parts of the church today.
David, you have written, I don't know, maybe you started writing a year and a half ago, maybe longer ago, about negative partisanship. And negative partisanship, I'll throw out a definition of it. I think that, you know, when I think of the term, I think that if I'm in one camp, I look at the other camp and all I can think of are all of the things that they don't like about me. And that's what that camp is like. And they hate me and they hate everything I stand for. And that's why I hate them. And your research, David, has shown that the actuality, the reality of that isn't what we assume. Can you talk about it a bit?
Yeah. What's really fascinating is that at large scale, we're actually wrong about our political opponents. That the average Republican believes the average Democrat is much more extreme than he or she really is. And then here's what's especially interesting. The more engaged a person is with politics and political media, the more wrong they are about their political opponents.
Oh, that's good.
That's so great.
They think their opponents are more extremist than they really are. They think their opponents hate them more than they really do. And so you have a lot of people running around on, you know, Facebook and Twitter, et cetera, who are, well, I've done my research and this is what the Democrats are like. And what their research is actually doing is deceiving them. Mm-hmm. It's deceiving them. And the people who are most right about their political opponents are the people who get their ideas about their opponents from these, you know, really antiquated things called friendships. They're the ones who are most right.
Right. Okay. So let's go back to the original topic, or the original kind of like petri dish we were looking at, which was, you know, John's group of friends at his church. We can do that. It doesn't have to be political parties. Negative partisanship can happen with people who disagree about masking at Sunday worship.
Oh, and in fact, it's happening at scale across the country. And, you know, look, I have friends who oppose masking, and I have friends who support masking. I have friends who are Democrats. I have friends who are Republicans. One of my closest friends in the world is a guy that I served with in Iraq who is about as different from me as you can humanly be. I mean, I'm a white evangelical conservative. He is a Mexican-American, former Catholic, former Mormon, agnostic, progressive.
We a lot of adjectives, really.
Oh yeah. He's a unique guy. We spent a lot of our deployment in Iraq. This was 07, 08, when I was supporting Mitt Romney in the primaries, and he was all about Barack Obama. when we redeployed home, I used some of my law school connections to get him great tickets to the Obama inaugural. And how does he repay me? He sends me a video from the inaugural of George W. Bush's helicopter leaving the White House while he sings the goodbye song.
Love you.
Oh, that's harsh.
And he's flying from Germany to my house tomorrow for us to get together with other friends from Iraq for a reunion. We haven't seen each other in 2 years. And these guys we're all over the place politically. And these guys are close to me as brothers. And we're losing that. And what it requires to do that, what it requires to have those relationships is it requires grace and actual tolerance. We've kind of messed up what the definition of tolerance is. It's sort of, we've reframed it as sort of affection, but tolerance actually means accepting people in spite of things that you might profoundly disagree with.
Yeah. So David,
and so we've lost that.
But there you are, David, and I would say that you're on the front lines probably more than most people on the cultural wars. But there's the church. I mean, if the church can't get it right, if you call yourself a believer in Jesus,
And we're fighting about masks on Sunday morning.
and you're holding a grudge against somebody that you know and you love and you've been together and you've worshiped together, something is deeply misconstrued with our society.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I'm not arguing that people should remain in relationships with people who are actively trying to harm them.
Yes.
Because I have seen that there are people they get so angry, they will actually try to harm you emotionally, at extremes, physically, that actually happens in this world, but they actually try to harm you emotionally. They actually try to undermine you, actually try to destroy you, break you down. In those circumstances, sometimes you just have to say, I love you, but I cannot be present in your life. And so I'm not saying that, we have to, no matter what happens, maintain friendships. But what I am saying is that, I was at another meeting of pastors. I tend to be at a lot of meetings of pastors, even though I'm not a pastor. And we were talking about how do we interact? What's our strategy for approaching the world? What's the strategy that we have right now? And people were talking about this approach politically, this approach culturally, a lot of really interesting and good ideas. And this pastor said, have we tried the fruits of the Spirit? It's like,
what?
Well, when you say it like that, that sounds kind of obvious.
Yeah.
But, you can, if you think about it, you can tolerate a lot of disagreement if your relationship is characterized by kindness, patience, self-control, all of these virtues. You can tolerate a lot of differences. It's when the fruits of the Spirit fall away, when instead of kindness, it's cruelty, when self-control, it's angry impulsiveness, when it's gentle, instead of gentleness, it's harshness. That's when these things start to degrade. It's not necessarily the underlying substantive disagreement. It's the manner of the disagreement that starts to crush us.
And listen, I think that going back to what we talked about at the start, David, I think a lot of it just has to do with our overwhelming belief in our own correctness. I really do. I think there's such a profound lack of humility. This is such a gigantic world, an enormous, uncountable cosmos that we're in. And we talk like we understand exactly 100% of what we're talking about all the time.
No, you're completely right. I mean, there's Scripture even directly rebukes that mindset. It says we know in part, we see through a glass darkly. So that mindset is directly rebuked. Micah 6:8. What does the Lord require of you, O man? What is good? Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly. But here's the tricky thing. Sometimes we are exactly right. Sometimes we're right. And yet when somebody is actually wrong in our lives, we love them. The fruits of the Spirit don't become optional when we are right and somebody else is wrong. So it's sort of, both things at once. One, we're not as right as we think we are, which should give us humility. And the other one is, even when we're right, we are to love people and, bless those who persecute you. That's not saying because you deserve the persecution. I mean, you're deserving the persecution. You're still blessing those who persecute you. And when was that written? That was written when persecution was something really, really real in a way that we don't have in the United States, not anywhere close.
I'm into that. That's really well said, David. Thanks for being with us. Before you do leave us, though, talk to our audience about the Dispatch.
Listen, we
and what you're
love
about.
David. What you guys are doing at this? Look how I just went. You asked David, and I decided to answer.
Yeah.
It's
No, go
so
ahead.
good, though.
Go ahead, Kath.
It is so good. We read it every single day.
Love it.
It's just reasonable. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's good reporting, and it's expressed reasonably.
Well, that's the Dispatch, y'all. That's I appreciate that very much, but that was our entire goal when we started. We saw a media landscape that we thought was full of hyperbole and exaggeration and intentionally provocative. And so we, rather than condemn that media environment, we thought we'd try to build something better. And so we've built a news organization that is centered around fact-based reporting, analysis, and commentary. And that doesn't mean we're perfect, but it means we try really hard to cut through the partisan fog and figure out what's really going on.
I'm into that.
Well, great
Reporting,
job to you and
analysis,
everybody else there.
commentary.
Congratulations on your 2-year anniversary.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Our pleasure. We appreciate you here being with us. David French from the Dispatch. We'll step away. We've got just a few minutes left in today's show. Something completely ridiculous. Kellogg's and Wendy's have partnered with a cereal. That's
It's
next.
not good.
We were talking a little bit ago about Wendy's and the Frosty treat.
I think it's fabulous.
It's been a long time since I've had one.
Yeah, I mean, it's been years since I've had one.
But I do love a Frosty. If I mean, I get knocked
Do
down.
they still have the vanilla ones? Because those are good too.
I always thought it was just chocolate.
No, there was a vanilla one for a while.
All right, well, listen to this. Big news for those of us who love cereal. The Kellogg's Company bringing a familiar fast food treat to the breakfast bowl with its new Wendy's Frosty Chocolatey cereal.
Oh, that's so bad.
That'll get your heart pumping. It's 7 a.m.
You know what that isn't? Kashi.
Or healthy. Created in collaboration with the Wendy's Company, the limited edition ready-to-eat cereal contains chocolate-flavored marshmallow pieces mixed with cocoa-coated multi-grain cereal pieces. The cereal evokes the irresistible taste of Wendy's Frosty, the company said. Each 1.5 cup serving contains 150 calories and 17 grams of sugar.
17 grams.
1.5 cups.
It's just small.
Well, it's kind of like Count Dracula. That's cereal.
Count Chocula.
Count Chocula.
Which is different than Count
yeah,
Dracula.
Count Chocula.
Right.
Right? I think this marshmallow, it's the same sort of thing, right?
I guess so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's bad. What we call breakfast in America, you guys, that's bad news.
I mean, would you rather have that or an Egg McMuffin?
Well, definitely an Egg McMuffin.
It tastes
You
good.
should probably have like Kashi, though.
Kashi.